Hi, everyone. Welcome. So happy that you could join us today. We are hosting another one of our G2I community events where we are speaking with Swapna Savant today, Senior Director of Engineering at Headspace, and we're going to talk about how to level up engineering managers. And we host these events pretty frequently. It's a great way to connect with the community and share knowledge and help us all kind of like achieve our goals and learn new things. So I am going to take a second here and let Swapna introduce herself. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Michelle. It is wonderful to be part of this community. Um, for those who don't know me, hi, I'm Swapna Savant. I work for Headspace and I'm a senior director of engineering in Headspace and have been very much passionate about diversity and bringing diversity in tech and also working on education and edtech, specifically for those who are transitioning to management role because engineering and management are two different things. And when engineering management comes into picture, there are some nuances that we all need to work towards.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing that information. So, the format today, we are going to start with Swapna sharing some knowledge with us for about 7 minutes ish. And then we are going to do a fireside chat between the two of us and then open up for Q&A and answer questions. So, if you have any questions, there is a panel on the side of the screen that you can put your questions in, and when we get to the Q&A section, we can go ahead and answer those. But please feel free to share any of your thoughts and comments in the chat and chat alongside other attendees in the meantime. So with that said, Swapna, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about elevating a management game for yourself and also for your team. Before I get started, just a quick thing about myself. I already introduced myself to you all, but few things that I would really like to emphasize is in my 18 years of industry experience here, I personally have built teams who have built large scale systems, and I take pride in building high performing teams. For me, it is valuable and it is very important to see my team growing. And also, I really get happy when I see my teams actually increasing their productivity. So that is something that I'm really passionate about. And with that in mind, I do support professionals in their career transitions if they choose to move from engineering or development into manager, or actually even go back to development, because sometimes managers also decide to move back to individual contributor role. Now, when you think about elevating your management game, there are three aspects that you have to really focus on. One is, why is that a challenge? What is that driving factor, which is even making you think about your management practices for yourself or even for your organization? And then you need to think about what are the strategies and tools that currently have been implemented, which may or may not be working for yourself or for your organization. And once you have that information, then how becomes very easy, because at that point you really can focus and double down on the strategies that you would like to bring on in your management approach. When I started this journey for my team in Headspace, first thing I did was I tried to understand what are the key problems that my team members and my managers are currently facing. Some of the things that my managers talked about was not having enough time to spend on learning or not having a well defined structure or program for career development. And we do have a talent team who do have these programs in place. And from there, what I heard was the challenges that employees have when they are joining these training sessions. There was one talent development team who said that engineering attendance in some of these training sessions are very low. So now I understood the challenges that I was dealing with. And this is something that I always recommend everybody to do if they are trying to figure out their management game for their organization. And if you are even doing it for yourself, you need to first understand what are your challenges too. Then this next aspect is to really go deeper into understanding whether you are even ready for a change. For that, you need to do your self assessment and goal setting. That is being self aware and even reflect on yourself whether that is even something that you want to do. Do you even want to become a manager? Do you even want to become a leader, or do you actually get happiness by being an individual contributor? There is a mindset shift that needs to happen from individual contributor to manager. That is, do you really enjoy by doing work, or do you doing work and actually executing on something and producing that and presenting that work, or do you enjoy building teams who can execute that work? Do you really want to be the person who is actually coaching somebody to be great or to be excellent in their job, or do you want to be that person to actually go deeper, code, and be excellent in that job? There is a very fine line between empowering your teams and micromanaging your teams. So you really need to ask these questions to yourself of what you really get joy out of, to first change your mindset to become a manager. Once you decide that you want to transition to management, there are a few aspects that you need to start thinking about. And that is, this is where I always tell my managers that leadership is not one size fits all scenario. So you need to understand what kind of a leader will you want to be, and what are your values as a leader. Once you understand what kind of a leader you want to be and what are your values, then that intersection is something that where you stand as a leader. These are the ways that you can actually figure out what kind of a leader or what are your values that you would like to be. Always listen to others with curious mind and try to understand how you would like your career to unfold. Try to come up with a vision for yourself, for your career, for your professional life. And try to, if you are doing this for your organization, then try to envision what kind of a true manager you would like to have in your organization. Then the second step is understand what are the principles and ideals do you cherish the most. Like, do you like an authentic leader, or do you like a leader who stands stronger in when there are like weathering storms that you have to deal with? Do you like a wartime leader, or do you really like somebody who is authentic or who is trustworthy? So you have to come up with 2 or 3 values that you cherish the most. And the last but not the least is your goals. What are your individual goals? What are your interpersonal goals? What are your organizational goals? What are your community goals, and what are your professional goals? All of these combined, you can figure out what are your goals as a leader. Remember one thing before I hand it over to Q&A. I really want to emphasize on developing your own leadership style and building your professional network, because network is extremely crucial once you get into management and leadership. Finally, make sure that you're managing your work-life balance, because if you don't, then the burnout it is something that is bound to happen with you. And create your own personal development plan. Or if you're doing this for your organization, create a personal development plan for your managers so that they always tie back to their own career when they are thinking about the business or when they are thinking about. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I was just jotting down some notes because I was like, ooh, I want to ask about all of these things, actually. So really appreciate that brief presentation. So I think we'll just start with kind of moving backwards through the presentation then. The last thing you noted was your personal development plan that you will have to create for yourself. And I love this whole concept of like self-reflection and like being honest with yourself and just answering these things truthfully, because that's of course the only way that you're really going to get what you want out of this. So when you are saying to make your personal development plan, what goes into that? What kind of questions should you be asking yourself? And if you could give an example of your own personal development plan for reference, that would be super great too.
Sure. I mean, that goes back to what I was talking about when I said you need to really think about your goals. And what that means is your individual goals and your community goals and your organizational goals, that combined together will give you a really good understanding of what are the top three or four things that really is important to you. Quite often it happens that many people think only about the next title that they want to reach to. Like if you're a manager, you want to become a senior manager. If you're a senior manager, you want to become a director, which is a good goal to have. Like it is a great goal to have. But at the same time, for you to build yourself as a leader, it is important for you to also understand what really matters to you. What are the things that you want to learn? For example, currently for me, my goal is how can I build a 5 year strategic plan for my team? And then start going backward from that strategic plan to understand what the team has to do right now so that we can get to that 5 year. So that is my organizational goal that I have set for myself. And then I think about the community goal. Like, the community goal is if you really are driven to help the community, what are the two things that you really want to do? Do you want to do mentorship or do you want to do speaking events? What exactly are those? So those also go into your personal development plan. And you will be surprised that that actually helps you in your career too. And then the third aspect is your own goals. Like, is there anything that you want to learn? Is there anything that you have seen in other leaders that you want to grow for yourself? And then you make that as your own plan. And that is how you build your own development plan. And then you work towards it.
This is really great. And I love the emphasis on values and bigger picture goals and purpose. One of the pain points that I've seen between a lot of management teams and their developers has been this misalignment, right? Because it's fundamentally two different roles, right? You have the manager who is taking care of the team and making sure that they're firing on all cylinders and they have what they need. And then you have the developers, their goals are different, right? They want to, build the best version of this e-commerce site or of this, workflow or analytics dashboard or whatever that they can build. And then it kind of can create tension if the manager's goals are actually to get a promotion or to move up into a company. These aren't really things that like all kind of go together seamlessly. So when one person is like looking at their promotion and the other person is looking at their product, there can be some tough conversations because you're coming to the table with different purposes. So I love this idea of like, okay, what is the greater picture beyond just moving on in a company?
Yeah, definitely. And you said about developer and manager. I personally always feel when a developer or when an individual contributor moves to management, it's a career transition. It's not a
Hmm.
promotion. And that is very critical for anybody to understand that management is not a promotion. You're basically transitioning out of your job, and there is a lot that you need to learn there. So you need to actually ground yourself back and actually grow from there.
Yeah, and I think that's like an important visual too, because like you said, maybe you thought like you might want to go into this management position, but as you mentioned before, you might get there and realize, never mind, you know what, this isn't exactly for me. So going back to that previous role, it shouldn't really be looked at as like a demotion,
Yeah.
if you're looking at it the other way as a promotion, because you're really just finding the right fit for you. I wanted to ask you a question about developers moving into management roles, because another thing that I see that's really tough for people to do is to stop coding on the project or working on the project. What do you think about that? Should engineering managers be coding on the project, or should they be just focusing on the people? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting question, and there is a lot of debate going on that.
Yeah, I know that wasn't an easy question.
So um, it depends upon the organization. Like whenever you are getting into a management role, it is critical for any developer to first understand what are the roles and responsibility of a manager. That's why leadership is never one size fits all. If you are a manager in, say, Netflix, doesn't mean that you will be a great manager in LinkedIn or in
Mhm.
Microsoft or in a startup, because startup is like all hands on deck. You wear
Yeah.
one. So you really need to understand what that organization needs from you. And if that organization doesn't want you to code, then you should not code, because that I keep saying this to my managers. I have so many managers right now and senior managers who report to me who have got into that ladder from a developer to a manager. And the moment they are in an uncomfortable spot, they move back to coding because that's comfortable, that's easy, that makes them feel that they have achieved something. The uncomfortness that you find in your career when you move into management, that's exactly where progression happens. So you have to learn to stay on in that uncomfortness and learn to like be okay with it, not just go back to what is easy or what is something that you know how to do, if that
Mhm.
makes.
No, it makes sense. It reminds me, I mean, I shared this with the G2I team last week after our all hands meeting as well. But it's really something that I keep top of mind all the time. And it's to paraphrase one of my favorite poems by Cleo Wade, where she talks about growing through the hard things. This is why it's called growing pains and not growing pleasures. It's because it can feel uncomfortable, but that's when, you really have to stick to it. You also mentioned work-life balance. At G2I Developer Health, this is the core of our culture and our company is the health, the physical and mental health of software developers, and really prioritizing that in the tech industry. Work-life balance is another thing that a lot of people find a lot of debate around. I think it's something that looks different for everyone. And I think it can definitely differentiate based on like your role and how you interact with other people that you work with. So when you're talking about establishing a work-life balance for engineering managers, what does that look like? What does that consist of?
Yeah. So the work-life balance, I mean, in my opinion, you might be in a situation where you feel that you have to give your 100%, and you should always give your 100%, but you have to find that sustainable balance between what exactly that 100% looks like. Because I have seen this happening multiple times. And by the way, this has happened with me too, because I have been in situations where I always felt I will work hard or I will work extra for this launch. And after that, I should be okay. There is never the thing of after that, you will be okay. So, because things happen, business grow, and you if you are one of the leaders who are on the forefront on such launches or businesses, that is always going to happen. So for me, finding a sustainable balance, trying to first figure out, and that's why the interpersonal goals, what exactly is important to you, and what are those top three things that you would like to do in your life? That is crucial because when you think about your goals, you're not only thinking about your organization or your team, you're thinking about your community, you're thinking about your interpersonal goals, you're thinking about your professional goals. So, when all of that combine, it becomes easier for you to find that right balance for yourself.
Yes. I think that's a great answer. And I love what you said about like you can't just think like, oh well, after this it will be better, because
Yeah.
unless you really intentionally are managing your time and looking at your time as like in the scope of like more than just a day at a time, um, you can so often find yourself never giving yourself that break. There was a really great tweet that went out a while ago that went viral, and it was like, burnout is tricky because you don't realize that the time that you're putting in today, the extra time that you're putting in today, you're actually borrowing from tomorrow. And so that's when burnout happens, is it's like, instead of you getting that consistency over time, you're just really chunking it all together up front and then crashing. The computer program crashes.
Yeah. You know what, Michelle? I'll tell you a story. This happened with me because at some point in my career, I got addicted to Slack because
Mm.
Slack is something that we have been using for quite a while. And it used to be on my phone, and I just got addicted. But I told my team members that this is happening to me. And I was like, help me get out of this because I just cannot not look at the messages. And my team challenged me to remove the Slack app completely from my phone because they're like, it's not needed. If we need some help, we can even call you. And that's what they did for me. So it is always one more factor in this work life balances, and I will especially say this to all the leaders out there, is not just make yourself accountable, but if you need help, let the team know that you need help, because it's easier for you to just get drowned into work. And if you tell that to your teams, they also feel that this is a top priority for you, and they will see the authenticity in it.
Yes, I love that. I mean, I have a friend that, she has like a hard time letting go of the work slack on her time off. And her team did the funniest thing where they actually just like when she takes PTO now, they just deactivate her like in the Slack. And they're like, we'll just let you like log in again after you get back. But like they like forcibly kick her out and then bring her back in. But I'm gonna move on to the audience Q&As. And so I'll start with this one from Morgan. Focusing in on the developer to manager transition, how can a developer successfully transition if they may not, hold on, it just moved on me, have leadership experience or have only been in IC?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You said Morgan. Yeah, thank you for that question, Morgan. Whenever an IC wants to become a manager, it's a transition. It's a career transition for them. And to make that happen successfully, you first, that IC, need to go through some trainings. And there is also this concept of having a tech lead position where you give 50% of the management role for this person and 50% of developer role for this person. What I do usually is, when we are giving them this role where we are actually trying to give them exposure into what exactly management means, we are giving them less and less engineering work at that point. For example, this engineer may not then code, but they might write tech specs, because that's kind of a lead job. Like, it's kind of an architecture job. They might write the tech specs, then they will make sure that all the tasks are set up correctly, and they will assign it to their team. And then it becomes their job to make sure that that project is kicked off and gone to completion correctly. So that is one of the aspects that they work on, while they are also getting more and more management responsibilities from their managers. The second aspect to that also is, whenever an IC is moving into management role, they should do some self-reflection with themselves. What that means is, they should be able to do a 360 on themselves to understand and specifically ask those who are giving feedback on their interpersonal skills and not their technical skills. And the second aspect is going through each and everything that they have done right now in their career and trying to understand, when they achieved those tasks, did they get joy from the technical side of it, or did they get joy because they were leading a team, or because they were coaching somebody, or if they were mentoring somebody? Those signals will help ICs understand whether they really want to transition into management.
This is a perfect lead into the next question from Frank. What are the key signs or signals that suggest an engineer is prepared to assume leadership responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what, Frank, I was alluding towards. Every engineer who wants to become a manager should write something called as a brag document. A brag document is a document where they go back into their career since they have started their career, write down everything that they have done in their career, go deeper into each and every project, and then start putting stars on the things that they really enjoyed doing. If most of the stars are around coaching, mentorship, leading the team, or talking to product managers, talking to stakeholders, then they have those signals, I would say, for getting into leadership. But if they really enjoy getting deeper into the code, understanding the nitty gritty, understanding the infrastructure aspect of it, then there might be a phase where they want to get into principal or architecture role and not management. So I usually look for these signals, and I'm very open and candid with my engineers when they're thinking about leadership.
Great. I love that idea. Also, just like as a side note, I mean, having a brag document is just a really good way to keep track of your own personal success. And yeah, I actually kind of suggest something similar when people are like, how do I make my resume? I'm like, don't make a resume when you're looking for a job. Make your resume all the time. Like, keep track of these things. Okay, so next question. This is a really good question too. What balance of technical ability to people management is necessary for a manager role? Which I've also heard rephrased often as, should managers be technical?
So, an easy indication of whether you should be technical or not is whom are you leading? So, if you are leading a group of technical people, you need to know enough to call out when you feel that they are not, when you feel that something is not right. You need to know enough to understand the nitty gritty in a way that you are able to give your inputs and navigate your technical people in the right direction. For example, if somebody is working on a project and they say that the level of effort to finish this project is large. So, as a manager, will you just go with it? Will you just go with the level of effort that somebody has said? Or would you like to know a little bit more to either challenge it or agree 100% with it, with that confidence that you can go to your stakeholders and explain why exactly it needs that kind of an estimate? So, in my opinion, it really depends upon which team or what is that team that you are actually managing. If you're really managing a highly technical team, then it might be a good thing for you if you have some technical abilities to call out these challenges. So,
Yeah, I think that's really great. Like, just to be able to understand, like, yes, is this really what we're looking at as far as like estimates and assessments go? But then also, yeah, in your role, you are an advocate for your team. And especially if you're going to be operating between two technical teams, then, like if somebody asks you a question about what your team is doing, you want to be able to answer and defend them and give them what they need. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. It absolutely depends on who exactly you are leading. The next question that we have are, what are some common pitfalls or mistakes you've observed in engineering management, and how can aspiring managers avoid them?
um, so few of the common pitfalls that I have looked at is one aspect is to going back into what is comfortable. So the moment you get a challenge, aspiring managers like to go back to their comfort zone. Like this,
Mhm.
in this case, it might be coding or whatever that might be, because every developer looks for a win. For them, at the end of a sprint or at the end of a week, they really want a win. And to get that win, to get into that comfort zone, is something that people just do it. That's one of the pitfalls I've seen. And the second aspect is, if once you strive to become managers, it is extremely important for you to start listening, and which is very hard for developers, not because they're not good at it, just because they come from something. They are rock stars, right? As developers, they have been a rock star, and now they are like going to a profession where it's really hard for them to start from grounds up. So it is really important for them to actively start listening and understand and learn from the people around you.
Oh, I love that. Yes, which touches back on a point that you made in your presentation about listening with a curious mind. I wrote that down. I like that a lot.
Yes.
Okay, so we are getting towards the end of our chat. It goes by so fast. I wanted to ask, is there any parting thought that you would like to leave with us today?
Yeah, I will just say one thing, that, as you said, right, always listen with a curious mind, but also be always courageous to forge your own path. Because don't try to, like, this is something that I have done, this is a mistake that I have done. Do not try to copy another leader.
Mm.
Learn and listen to other leaders and then find your own path of what makes it authentic for yourself. because that's how you will actually become, you will grow in your career and you can find your own true self while going through this journey of yourself.
I love that. I love that. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your wisdom and your time and sharing these tips with us. I think this is really great, and can provide some great direction for anyone interested in moving up in management. So thank you, Swapna. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me.
Awesome. All right. So before we sign off, I just want to mention this is hosted by G2I. We are a platform for hiring developers. And we actually have a referral in place right now. So this referral bonus. So if you refer a business to G2I, we'll give that business $1,000 off their first invoice. And also you can earn up to $10,000 when a referred business hires through G2I. So we'll share more information about that to check out. And with that said, thank you again, Swapna. Thank you, Thea, who's operating in the background right now. And thank you everyone for joining us. Hope this was informative. Have a great day.